Grow, Sell, and Retire is the podcast for the lazy overachiever. BD Dalton, author of The Assisted Purchase, True Gravity, and Grow, Sell, and Retire, is here to give his 25 years of secrets, tips, and assistance to take your business to the next level. This podcast is for anyone who wants to sell more, work less, and make better business. Now, here's your host, BD, with today's GSR podcast.
Hey everybody, BD Dalton here, Grow, Sell, and Retire podcast. I always love to have people back on the show, especially when they come out with new stuff for us, new ideas, and bringing it forward. So today I have Peter Docker here with me, who's been on the show before in kind of a Simon Sinek world, but now Peter's brought his own stuff to market, and he's really working great with some amazing companies all over the world. Peter, welcome to the Grow, Sell, and Retire podcast again.
BD, it's fantastic to be back here with you. It's been a few years, I think, so it's really wonderful to reconnect.
It's fun. It's always fun, and I love it because last time you were here, and we really went into the start with why. We went into the find your why. We went into all that stuff. Now we've taken it to a whole new level. So, leading from the jump seat, tell me just a little bit about how we got there. So, kind of give me a little bit of your career path, and sure. What's a jump seat?
Okay. Well, I've been hugely fortunate in my life, BD, to have had so many different experiences through the work that I do. So I spent 25 years in the Royal Air Force. I was a pilot, senior officer. I flew large aircraft and led people during wartime. Led massive multi-billion-dollar programs, procurement programs, taught at our defense college, worked in industry around the world. And you did mention Simon Sinek there. I spent about 8 years with Simon helping to take his message around the world. But then I thought there's more I can do. And so I spent quite some months writing my latest book called Leading from the Jump Seat, which brings together, a myriad of things that I've learned from my life journey, from leading people in really critical situations to working with people in a business context and it was the opportunity to put down all these things in a simple format, which we hope is really helpful for people. And yes, we can talk about what the jump seat is.
Walk us through the jump seat, because I think that's the funny thing is I have this new AI bot, this thing called a Rabbit R1. And so even though we've talked before, I was coming over here and it said, Peter Docker was a firefighter and the jump seat is, and I said, I don't think it's that. So where ChatGPT goes down the wrong rabbit hole, I was like, I know it's not that, but so what is the jump seat? And then where does that point of view bring us in that leadership perspective?
Well, everything that I share is based around stories, because that's how, as human beings, we've learned for generations, thousands of years. And every story I share in the book is both true and also it brings up an important point or practice. And the opening story of the book actually lends itself to the title of the book. And it goes back to, good heavens, 2002. At the time, I was a pilot and senior officer in the Royal Air Force. And we flew large passenger jets, carried about 140 people. And on this particular occasion, I was doing the final check on this young guy called Callum, who'd been a first officer, a co-pilot for many, many years, and had spent about 6 months doing all the training to become a captain, the guy in charge of the aircraft. And I stepped in to do the final check, which was where I acted as his co-pilot as he flew us from London over to Washington, Dulles, and then on to San Fran. And San Francisco is a very busy place. Any of us who've flown in there know this. And there's a double cross of runways. All the runways meet in the middle. I'm sure someone thought that was a good idea at the time. But anyway, it's very busy. And you need to have your wits around you as you approach to land. And Callum was all over it, as I knew it would be. We landed, we taxied in, shut down, all the passengers go off. I turned to him, I said, Callum, fantastic job. I'm signing you up. You're now a fully fledged captain, qualified to fly this aeroplane anywhere in the world. We're going to stop here tonight. In the morning, we've got another full load of passengers. You'll have a regular co-pilots making up your crew. I'm going to be down the back, with the other passengers. And that was a great moment, as you can imagine, BD. You'd worked hard for it. But the following morning, he came to me during the pre-flight planning stage. He said, "Excuse me, sir." He called me sir because I was his very, very senior boss in the military. He said, "Look, it's very busy out here during rush hour in San Fran. Can you come and sit on the jump seat to keep an extra pair of eyes open for other aeroplanes as we taxi out? Make sure we go the right way because we don't come to San Fran very often." I said, "Yes, Captain, I'd be delighted to." And I thought in that moment, it was a very courageous thing for him to say because he'd just got people like me off his back, after 6 months of being trained and checked. But he wanted me to sit on the jump seat because he was connected to a higher purpose, which was the safety of the aeroplane. And the jump seat is a third seat on the flight deck of large aircraft, which is usually empty, but someone qualified can sit there and you've got a great view out the front of the aeroplane. So that's why I strapped myself in and we fired up, taxied out. And I knew that Callum, again, would be all over it, as indeed he was. He didn't need my help. We taxied onto the runway, got clearance for takeoff. He pushed the throttles forward. We thundered down that runway. And everything was going swimmingly until about 300 feet after we'd taken off. We're about 300 feet, and we had an emergency.
Oh, no.
We hit what's called extreme turbulence. Now, if you get turbulence up at altitude at 35,000 feet, it's 99,000 times out of whatever, it's not an issue. It really isn't. Stuff will fall out the cabinets above you, drinks will be spilled, but you'll get through it. The aircraft is designed to handle it. Down at 300 feet, there's a very high risk you're going to hit the ground. And there was Callum wrestling with the controls.
Yes.
And I knew that what I did in the next 2 seconds would dictate whether I and the 140 people on board would survive or not.
Wow.
So I'll tell you what I did. I did absolutely nothing.
Wow.
Because in that moment, I didn't need to take control. I didn't need to do anything except to have Callum feel that I had his back. I needed to be a great follower. And, this lends itself, and clearly I'm here telling the story, so it all worked out fine. You can read more about it in the book. But
yes,
the point about this, BD, is that it is inevitable that at some stage we hand over control, whether we're the CEO of a company, a team leader, even a parent with children. Our kids will grow up, leave home, and start to lead their own lives. It's inevitable. And jump seat leadership is all about embracing that inevitability. Because when you do, you focus on lifting people up and equipping them so when the time is right, they can take the lead and carry forward those things that are deeply important to us, just as Callum did on that day. So that was the genesis of Lean from the Jump Seat, because it's all about how do we create this environment where, just as Callum did, people are willing to invite us back to become part of their team. It's not us who chooses to lead from the jump seat. It's when others on our team invite us back. That's when we know that we become a jump seat leader.
That's awesome. So if you're doing that and I've got some questions here, kind of hopefully a little bit quirky and a little bit fun, but if you had as a mentor or as somebody leading from the jump seat that's kind of imbuing your powers, your knowledge, your confidence on them, what's something that you hope that your mentees have as a superpower that you could say, this is your superpower, Callum, or what you would hope teams that you work with would have as one of their superpowers or a couple of superpowers that they could bring to the table?
Well, the work I do is all about enabling people to be extraordinary. That's what fires me up. And that, if you like, is another way of talking about superpowers.
Mm-hmm.
And I do genuinely believe that we all have ways that we are extraordinary. But it's not about me, giving someone a superpower. It's about uncovering it.
Mm-hmm.
And where we start with that, BD, is getting very clear on what I call what we stand for. What are our non-negotiables? What is it that we're willing to sacrifice for? In terms of time, money, even reputation, because we feel it's something that we have to do. These go deeper than values. Okay, values can change depending on circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
You might consider yourself to be a courteous person. I'm sure you are. But if you're late for a meeting and there's one parking slot left, you got to get that parking slot, even if someone else is, So yes. Values can change. Stands, they are like this constant hum in the background of our lives, which guide us even when we're stepping into the unknown.
Mm-hmm.
Now, most times we don't take the time to reflect, to put those feelings into words. But when we do, we can put them into action. And they can become very, very powerful. I give examples of this in the book, How to Discover Your Stands. And our collection of stands, what we deeply believe in, that is the root of our superpower. Because when we can bring those to bear in all walks of life and what we do, we will excel, because we'll have the confidence to step into the unknown, the confidence to face uncertainty, crisis, and also normal business times. It will empower us. So that's what I'd offer.
That's good. So then on that, so you had the story about Callum, and how about something in business where you were able to kind of through what you did, lead a team through uncertain times in a business scenario, financially, merger or something like that, where you're able to sit back and allow these people to, just like Callum with the 300 feet in extreme turbulence, but in extreme business turbulence, how does somebody do that, to sit back and hand it over to their kids, or to the underlings or the people that are coming through and taking over the company?
Well, it's all about setting the conditions.
Okay.
The example of Callum didn't happen by accident. We'd set the conditions where he was appropriately trained, built the relationship, we have the trust, and we have what I talk about, a shared commitment. So the three practices of jump seat leadership actually underpin all this. There's the practice of commitment, and commitment goes beyond purpose. There's the practice of leading with humble confidence, where we're resolute on where we're heading, but I have the willingness to listen to the input of others. And then there's the practice of belonging, because when people feel they belong, then they're willing to step outside of their comfort zone. And all these things link to, well, actually what drives us. Everything that's deeply important to us, BD, is driven by one of two things. It's either driven by fear or it's driven by love. And fear is triggered when we sense our life, our livelihood, our status, or our reputation is under threat. And the trouble with that is that it starts to drive our behaviors, where we start to think just about ourselves rather than others. We see scarcity in the world instead of possibility, and we close down. And ultimately, it has us make decisions that negatively affect others. But when we find the courage to lead from a place of love, which actually comes back to what we stand for, what we believe in, then we open up, we think of others, we lift others up, we see possibility rather than scarcity. So all these things come together to enable us to overcome uncertainty, volatility, ambiguity, complexity that we face in the business world. And when people are leading from a place of love rather than fear, that's when innovation starts to increase, creativity to solve the challenges we face. So it's all about setting those conditions, and that will create the outcome that we're seeking, even in times of extreme uncertainty. And I can give examples of the most extreme when I've led people during combat. When you can bring everybody together, first of all, under a shared commitment, which is in service of others, it has them think higher rather than about themselves. It has them think of leading themselves from a place of love rather than fear. And that forms the foundation for everything.
So in the book, you work through some practical examples and ideas around commitment, these types of things. So if I was sitting back today and I was going back into my company today and talking to my 5 team members, how do I change it from the stereotypical vision written on the wall into our shared commitment to deliver wealth and prosperity to X? So how do we ask ourselves to have proper commitment, but that we all buy into?
Well, purpose is great because it can help align a team, but it doesn't necessarily get us into action. It certainly in itself can't help us get over the inevitable bumps in the road that we'll face. So moving from a place of purpose to a place of commitment, that takes it up a notch or two. A commitment is when we are willing, when we've got skin in the game, when we're willing to make sacrifices, when we feel viscerally connected to the outcome. So during wartime, for me, when I was leading people, I was absolutely committed to bringing everybody home safe. I was absolutely committed to doing our job so as those who relied on us would be safe. So these sorts of commitments where you feel viscerally connected and it's in service of others, it gives us the inner energy then to overcome the challenges that we will face. It becomes a much more personal thing. So in answer to your question, if you want to elevate from purpose to commitment, it's about making whatever it is we're in service of in our organization, it's about making that commitment personal to each and every one of us in our team or our organization. And that's about building a relationship with what it is we do as a company or organization and building a relationship with one another. That's the key.
So along that line, so here's a little challenge for you. So you're going to do a trust fall, and you've got 2 or 3 leaders or 4 leaders that are going to catch you in today's world that you believe are committed to their thing. And you could use like personal examples as to people you're coaching. It could be the big names that are out there, but somebody that is truly committed to their purpose, and you know that they're going to catch you. Who do you think is going to catch you here in the world of leadership? And we'll leave politics out of it because we're, like we talked about, we're in an election year, and a lot of people don't trust any politicians at this point in time. So let's keep it in the business world.
Well, business world, but I will talk about just the world, because business, life, it is all about people. So I would trust anyone.
Nice.
However, it's about setting the conditions beforehand.
Very good.
So what conditions exist before you do this trust fall? And that can be an actual trust fall or a metaphor for trusting people. And I'd be really interested to get into, well, what conditions exist here? What relationship have we built with those people? What is our shared commitment? Because, my closest friend or work colleague, you'd hope they would catch you. But hey, if you've just had a falling out, then they might miss. They might do a half catch.
They might do a half catch.
They might do a half catch. So that's the first thing that I'd like to mention. It's about setting the conditions. What's the immediate relationship? Have you set those conditions?
Yes.
But also, the second thing I'd raise on this is when we're talking about trust fall, often we are focused on making those who are meant to be catching us accountable for catching us. I'm interested in people taking responsibility for ensuring that you've set the conditions right, so those people choose to catch you. And that's on us, the person who is falling.
Yes.
Yeah. So often we can set the conditions where we're sending people up to fail, where they don't catch you. So as we can just say, I told you so. But this is where taking responsibility for that situation comes into play. Yes, we might make people accountable for catching us, but are we choosing to take responsibility for creating those conditions where they will indeed catch us?
So how in the book and how in your experience, how do we do a responsibility reset? So let's say you and I have done this stuff and I'm getting ready to have a trust fall and you're going to be catching me, and you and I have just argued because I didn't send out the TPS reports and and let you down for a client. So how do you and I have a reset and regain the trust, the engagement towards the commitment and the responsibility?
Well, it's just that. Let's have a conversation, BD, on what's our shared commitment. What do we believe in? What are we viscerally connected to? That's the foundation for everything. Even this podcast, we're showing up because we want to share ideas that we hope will help others. That's our shared commitment. So it's not about you. It's not about me. It's about that shared commitment, which goes beyond either of us.
Mm-hmm.
So whenever we feel that maybe trust has started to erode, let's get back to that conversation of what is our shared commitment? What do we believe in? What is deeply important to us? And what are we willing to sacrifice for? Because when we touch on that, when we are willing to sacrifice, then one of those things that comes up is our own ego. We're willing to sacrifice that because we're in service of something bigger than ourselves. So that's the conversation to have.
So when you're leading from the jump seat, there's some life hacks. I know there's no shortcuts in engagement with people and building up trust, but are there some things when we're having a challenge that we can sit back and ask ourselves a couple of questions, or a couple of, some people do disc profiles, some people do a team away days and all these types of things. Is there something that we can apply now because the trust fall is in 2 hours? So are there some life hacks to get you back online besides just a conversation of this? Is there some tools that that you're using?
Well, I point to the practices of jump seat leadership. So we've touched on commitment and shared commitment.
Yes.
I mention it a lot because that's the foundation for everything.
Definitely.
And when you have that shared commitment, it enables us to lead with this humble confidence,
mm-hmm.
where the power of leading with humble confidence is about embracing not knowing the answer and
mm-hmm.
seeing that as a strength, and empowering our people, inviting our people to help come up with the solutions to the challenges we face. So asking ourselves, am I leading with humble confidence?
Mm-hmm.
And thirdly, have a look in the mirror. Am I nurturing a sense of belonging? When people feel that they belong, and it's a human instinct, everyone wants to belong. When they feel that they belong, then people step up, they choose to do more. They choose to, support one another. And with belonging, how we nurture that is by showing that we care.
Mm-hmm.
So if things aren't going right in our organization, the starting point is, who am I being that's causing those around me to be who they are?
That's really good. And so I think that's probably the best question. So I was going to say, are there other questions that you could ask yourself, but am I being the best me, or am I being the best me towards the commitment of the overall process?
Absolutely.
And do a lot of current companies have challenges because they don't have the commitments as a company to a point besides selling more of X? Is that where we fall into challenges and downfalls in companies and loss of or turnover of employees and things like that? Is that where you're seeing a lot of challenges happening in the world currently?
I see that's where the lot of opportunity is. And we work with all sorts of industries, and often people will say, well, hey, healthcare, if you're working in a hospital, well, people are very clear on, the reason they're there and the commitment they have. Actually, it's not necessarily always at the front of people's minds. So in these situations, in any organization, if we are choosing to lead, then it is up to us to keep that picture alive of what it is. What is our shared commitment? What are we here for? What do we believe in? And importantly, how do we make that personal to each and every one of our team? Because when we do that, people will feel they belong. They will choose to contribute more than they have to because they want to. And that will start to address any issues you've got on turnover or lack of productivity or whatever it happens to be. It always comes back to, who am I being as a leader? What's our shared commitment? And what does that mean to people at an individual level, at a personal level?
Cool. And if somebody's going to Leading from the Jump Seat, looking at the book, and they had one chapter, one page, one something else that they said that's just going to hook them in and draw them in, what do you think that would be? If you were to start all over again and you started with this as the commitment to the book, what would be your favorite chapter or something that somebody should go back and lead when they go to your website?
Well, each chapter builds on the last. One that comes to mind is about being the guardian of hope.
Nice.
Okay. And there is a story there of when I flew into Sierra Leone, which was just coming out the other side of a terrible, terrible civil war. But why hope is so important is because it links to leadership. There's a difference between being optimistic and being the guardian of hope. And it comes back to a US Navy Admiral, actually, James Stockdale, who spent 8 years as a POW, prisoner of war in Vietnam.
Yes.
And when he was finally released, many of his people had perished. They didn't survive. About half of them did. And he was asked in an interview, what was the difference between those that survived and those who didn't? And he said, well, those who died were the optimists. And the interviewer said, well, what do you mean? He said, well, yeah, the optimists were those who said, oh, we'll be out of here by Christmas, or we'll be out of here by Easter, or pick any other random date. And that date came and went.
Yes.
And they were still held prisoner. And it chipped away at their soul until finally they gave up. And the interviewer said, well, how about those who survived? He said, those are the ones who had hope. And hope is about having an unshakable belief that it will be different tomorrow, that someday we will, or rather there will be a tomorrow. Someday we will, in this case, get released. We will get home. So in these times of uncertainty, of complexity, of volatility, whether it's political or otherwise, as a leader, if we can be the guardian of hope and maintain that hope, that there will be an after, we will come through this, then it will help to set the conditions where our people can step up and start to lead and find possibility where others find none.
I usually ask to do a 1 minute comeback to, the rewind moment, which you did last time, but this time I'm not going to do it because that was the rewind moment. So that was awesome. That was a great, standing on the mountain, and it was like, yes, that was the point. So if people want to know more about you, they want to find the book, obviously it's on Amazon and all that type of stuff, but if they want to find out more, if they want to book you to speak, or if they want to engage with you, where's the best place they can find you?
Well, you can Google me, find us on our website, Leading from the Jump Seat. And yes, I do keynotes up to several thousand people, but we do workshops, but also long-term partnerships with companies who want to embed jump seat leadership into the next generation of leaders in their organization. So yeah, drop me a line. And even if people just want to have a chat or give me feedback on the book, I'd love to hear your thoughts, because that's when I learn more too.
That's very good. And any other books in the wings?
Well, we've just published Lean from the Jump Seat in Italian, and that was quite a lift. So that came out in the last few months. So we'll see. We'll see.
Yes.
It's quite a commitment, as you know. But I'm sure there's another book there somewhere. But we'll put that on the shelf just for the moment. But thank you for asking.
Perfect. Peter Docker, thank you so much for coming on the Grow, Sell, and Retire podcast. It's been awesome to have you back in as a guest again.
It's been an absolute delight and pleasure. Thanks, BD.
Thanks, Peter.
Thanks for joining us on Grow, Sell, and Retire. For more information, tools, or to book one of our team members to work with your team, business, or to speak at your event or conference, visit rockfind.co.uk. If you like the podcast, you'll love one of BD's 3 books: The Assisted Purchase, True Gravity, and the book the podcast is based on, Grow, Sell, and Retire. If you want to work for the rest of your life, that is your business. If you don't, that is ours.